Okay, so it's 5:30. We'll go ahead and call to order the July regular meeting of the Decorah Community School District Board of Education. Note by way of roll call that we have 4 directors present and accounted for, and Director Yelly is not with us this evening. Cindy, can you read the mission statement?
Sure. At Decorah Community School District, we embrace student learning and well-being as our fundamental purpose. We will, in partnership with our students, families, and community, make the world a better place. The mission of the Decorah Community School District is learning, thriving, creating our legacy. The vision of the Decorah Community School District is Decorah Community School District will be a collaborative, innovative, learning-centered organization empowering students to embrace their personal strengths and create their future.
Thank you. We have no old business, so I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Also move to approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, consent agenda. I think it's a good thing we're doing this tonight because it has summer coach recommendations and the seasons are already over, so let's get those things approved.
I had a
This would
question.
be for the next.
I had a question. I saw that on the bills, there was a high school soccer press box for $38,000. I didn't know they were building a press box.
That was part of 2 years ago. We're finishing up that project.
Yeah, we're taking a container and changing from a storage container into a press box. Is Adam here? He's, okay, we can speak more about it.
Budget.
Was that?
Last year's couple.
Was it? Okay, so it's not a permanent mounted building that we had, that we didn't build a press box like a.
Construction refurbished a storage container.
Got it.
Before the cement pads, did a whole design with them.
Got it, okay.
That's permission from the city to use a. City from the zoning, I had to go to the zoning, 2 zoning meetings to get permission.
The permanent structure.
Very permanent.
Oh.
That was the goal.
I need to get to a soccer game.
Which is part of it, by doing that, we didn't have to do a flat roof, because the top of it is actually an area where we can film, it's just everybody goes to the top, so we can.
Sure. Yeah.
Get ourselves up to
Yeah.
speed.
Yeah, okay.
And special paint, so that long durable paint. Yeah, it's got automotive paint on it, that caused the budget actually to go a little bit higher than what's initially budgeted, but we wanted it to last forever.
We have the most well-traveled press box in the history of high school. Okay, any other questions about any specific items?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, this is the time for communication from the public. But seeing all familiar faces, I'm assuming we don't have anyone to address us, so we will move on to the presentation, which we do not have in July. So we will zoom right ahead to new business. First, the early childhood Head Start agreement to 23-24.
So this is, guess we do this every year where we host, the our at-risk Head Start program, and we've done that at West Side. We're still able to do that. It serves children in the community, so I can keep talking, but I would just recommend we would approve it. I'll make a motion to approve that.
I'll second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and another annual agreement with Clinicare.
Yeah, this is Clinicare, which operates right across the street. That's a private company that runs Crossroads Academy. We're going to propose a few changes recommended by our attorney and also just by special ed director. So could, and I shared them with Crossroads and I just haven't heard back. So I wonder if they're on summer vacation. But I think our big thing is we want to be able to, when students go from Crossroads to our high school for half a day or more, we can get compensated for that. But if it's under half a day, we haven't always been compensated in the past because it's based on Crossroads enrollment. So we're just going to put language in there that they reimburse at a quarter time in 1/4 increment. So in a 7-period day, they come up for 2 classes, that the reimbursement to the core school district would kick in for those students. I think that's fair, but in honest, I mean, we can approve it tonight and then I'll share with them this is already approved, and if there's some negotiations, we can maybe do an amendment coming up on that. But other than that, we have a good relationship. I think I mentioned in my notes before, their office kind of surprised me, is in a suburb of Milwaukee, and their 2 schools are here, and New Horizons is Mount Horeb or something. They're both on the western part of the state. But when I was out visiting my parents, I stopped into their offices and talked to them, and it's not a big corporation. And they're just happy to have this small niche here in Iowa. So, but I recommend, based on having our attorney review and our district review, that we approve this again.
The cost hasn't changed.
No, cost hasn't changed. I mean, we bill them for Catherine's time, a little bit. And so, the service, we're not doing work for pro bono for Crossroads to make it work. And they're pretty receptive to, we have a separate agreement with all the schools in the consortium about making sure we're able to, as we talked about earlier, hire and bill a special ed director. And so we'll have that extra oversight this year as well, that will be built to the program. So, yeah. And they serve a niche in Northeast Iowa as a place that folks can use for their students that they don't have. We don't have resources in smaller towns. It's nice to have a site like this.
So we have that added capacity.
Yeah.
I so move to approve the Clinicare contract for the academic year of 2023 through 24.
Second it.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next, the UPAH, which is a new acronym to us. So
Yeah, we had to look that up. Unity Point. And for our students with IEPs or nursing needs, we contract with Unity Point. Lots of times you can bill back in Medicare on these services as well. So I think we've done this. This is another one of those. We do it every year. Maybe you folks haven't seen it just because I think we didn't always bring contracts to the board, but I'm more comfortable doing that. So yeah, that's the Unity Point healthcare agreement.
Again, no financial changes, basically just we understand contract.
Yeah.
Make a motion that we renew the Unity Point UPH employee services agreement.
1 second.
all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and now we get into a couple of things which are also new.
This is new. I think we've talked about this a lot, worked with the administrative team and the association on retention and recruiting, especially for the high needs areas. And we kind of hired some people and have this deal in place. And talking to Carrie Weber, our attorney, she was more comfortable if the board had approved it with an acknowledgement of, because there's a financial tie to these positions, that the board understand that there is a financial commitment to our recruitment and retention. The positions we've specifically identified are the instructional strategist, K-12, and then this year as a need area, the business teacher. Those areas could change in the future. We hope next year we've got some plans in place that maybe we'll get our hiring done a little earlier and we won't have as many of these, but to make sure that we were staffed for this fall. This is what we need to do. Obviously worked with Carrie, worked with administrators. I mean, there's pluses and minuses of doing this, but this is where we're at. We need to do this. So I highly recommend we approve this one.
Is there anybody that we've hired on their screen?
Yeah, we've got, we hired 2 instructional strategists and their incentive was $3,000 for 3 years. And the business teacher we hired with $4,000 for 3 years.
Is that per year?
Yes.
The second part of that maybe concerns me a little bit. The one that, if they are terminated or quit the program or decide not to do it. Says employee may be required to return all or part of the retention incentive if the employee is terminated or resigns from the district. So let's say that happens. How are you going to try to come up with something that after it happens or as it happens, how you?
Well, what will we have? That's of course language we got from Carrie and ours, and I get that they have to put it in there. I can tell you that the compensation model is we're adding this a little bit to each check. And so if we pay you out over 12 months and you work 9 months, without doing the math in my head, we should be ahead. Now, if we would terminate somebody at the beginning of the month, it might be, we might be a little bit, we're not adding a lot to every check is what I'm saying. And since they're working and then we're compensating them, we should be okay on that. In the past, when we had one of these in Central City, on a similar kind of thing, but it wasn't, the teacher just left to get an administrative job and he was all worried. Well, we reminded him, we're going to just withhold it from your last paycheck in July and you'll be okay because you'll get your next paycheck starting. And so we of course pay people in July and August. So that's going to help us maybe pay in arrears a little bit on these.
That's not how I was looking at this.
Casey, Idaho, Northwest Backcountry.
Oh. Can I buy an airplane real quick?
Stuff you got to do.
Better tell him I'll call him later. Sorry about that. So how I thought this might be is we invest $4,000 a year in 3 years, and this person gets this degree and they leave the district.
This isn't degree, this is retention. The degree one is the next one.
Okay.
This is you teach a subject that we can't hire somebody for, and you're willing to pay you extra money, and we'll add that. We're adding a little bit to each check.
Okay.
And then if you decide in December you want to go, well, you've already worked for us for 3 months, and so we've paid you 3/12 of it. So then we would just stop paying.
Got it. Okay.
So we're
Yeah.
like, I get why she put that language in there, but having lived through it, I mean, without doing the experience, it's possible, but it would be nominal that somebody would make out with. You'd have to quit like right after a pay
Yeah, I
period.
get that. Yeah, I was thinking we we're putting an investment into them that we would.
No, that's the next one.
So I have that in highlight. That's one.
Okay, all right, all right.
That reads differently to me than, but I agree. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the adoption of retention incentive resolution.
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now, reading Brian's mind, we'll move into the tuition reimbursement resolution.
So you're a teacher and we need you to get an endorsement. And we say, hey, we need you to teach a different special ed class, or we need you to teach the health class or something that you don't currently have the endorsement in. For years, when we had lots of teachers, we would just find somebody and just say, well, if you want the job, this is what you have to do. And so this incentive just recognizes the fact that if you get an endorsement for an area that we need, we will pay up to $7,000, which I specifically took a number that was larger than I thought it would take, because I didn't want to have to come back and say, oh, we spent, went over budget, up to 10 staff members. And again, I can't imagine we ever need more than a couple, but the minute we have that, I want to be prepared. We'll pay for tuition, the books, and the endorsement. The contract that you're not seeing is the contract that we would have with the person, where then there's a payback. and each year is basically 20%. So if it costs, if we ask Ron to get an endorsement and we invest $1,000 and Ron leaves that, so he's shaved 20% off of what he owes us. So then he would owe us the $800 after year one. And then after year two, he'd only owe us $600. And after year three, it would be $400. And that's the part. This is the one that we had with our AD, who we asked him to get an administrative license so he could help with supervision and evaluation. And when he left and he owed us money because he owed us like 40% of his program, and we just turned around and had that, basically garnished to withheld payment out of his last 2 paychecks. And since we paid people over 9 or 12 months and they only worked 9 months, we were ahead and it worked out fine.
In this case, is there another contract besides this?
There's a contract that we issued to the employee. This is just a resolution that you folks are approving. I can get you a copy of it.
No, I don't need to, but it's good that there is one.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
This is, when talking to Carrie, she wanted the resolution so that the board acknowledges you're promising to do these kind of things, and this is an expensive public funds, but understanding that we've got separate agreements with the employee that they'll sign. And then the nice thing about this is this money won't necessarily come out of general fund. We would target this out of our teacher quality fund, which is for teachers do professional development.
I just thought it would have you in a tough spot if you look at this and said, we want you to pay some money back. It doesn't say how or what.
Yes,
But
yeah.
there's another separate agreement that states that.
Yes.
I think that's.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Good.
Okay, anyone care to offer a motion?
I so move to approve the resolution establishing student tuition reimbursement program for licensed teaching staff.
I'll second that.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next, the handbooks, employee and student, something that we haven't necessarily approved on an annual basis, but we're starting a new tradition.
Yeah, I think we started last September, and then folks remembered I wanted to see them earlier. But yeah, this isn't board policy, but the fact that we're putting stuff in a handbook and we're going to hold people accountable for this and expect them to do it. Advisement from previous districts is that you make sure you take all these to the board so that again, it's not board policy, but it's board approved, board recognized. So this is basically what we've had in place for many years.
So no edits for this version or this year.
Outside updating stuff for the
Just
classified handbook.
updating the insurance and salaries.
Mhm.
Which was the handbook change summary kind of outlines the changes basically, correct?
I believe we got a handbook summary from the middle school, put in a handbook. They changed maybe more stuff than the other folks.
That's awesome. Okay.
This is the classified, this would be
Got it. Yeah.
bus drivers, paras, food service.
I'll make an emotion to approve the classified employee handbook for 23-24.
I'll second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next, the elementary student handbook.
Can we bundle all these together? As item G?
You could,
I'm asking.
if the,
And list on one agenda item just with drop downs.
Okay. As you desire.
Okay. I'll approve. Recommend we approve item G, all the student handbooks for 23-24.
Okay.
The rest of, sorry. I didn't know they're all, I didn't look at all of them, but nothing in here that you had any concerns that were major challenges.
no,
And it's all just standard updates based on Have you stated before?
Maybe we could. We got two of the three
There's
principals.
one change that's probably worth mentioning for the high school student handbook. In the past, the GPA and class rank and honor roll designations has specifically excluded just PE classes, no other classes at the high school. Based upon a recommendation and kind of my personal view that all classes should be treated kind of equitably. We're rolling in, so there won't be a separate honor roll. The recommendation would be not to have a separate GPA, class rank, and honor roll designation that doesn't include PE, and that PE courses count towards the GPA, class rank, and honor roll, just as every other academic course at the high school does. I'm not necessarily sure specifically why it was excluded from all that. I don't know what the history is there, but that's a unique thing that I hadn't seen anywhere else I've been. Kind of honors the hard work and the time that our PE teachers invest in creating a robust and diverse sort of set of courses and offerings for kids. So that would be one change that I think would be worth mentioning and making sure the board is aware of. Otherwise, really what we did at the high school level was a lot of linking of board policy, so that it specifically references board policy throughout the entire document. So just so you have that awareness looking at it, you know.
Is it okay if I ask Mr. Hurst a question? So with the all high school courses are weighted equally. Like a college prep course would be weighted, if a student got an A in that class, that would be
Right.
weighted the same as a
Right.
different class.
Right. You know, like in some courses, some buildings, I know that in other districts, they will like, let's say you take an AP course, you get an A, you can get a GPA over 4.0. We don't do that. Just 4.0 is high as you can get. And then for whatever reason, PE, if you get a grade, and it would, I think, go on your transcript, but it wouldn't like get factored in your class rank, GPA, or honor roll designation for whatever reason. So I was bringing that into congruence with everything else that every other course that he offered. I thought that was a good thing to do.
All right, so that says that Brad did a fair amount of work with faculty. Teachers.
That is kind of a major deal, and thanks for bringing that to.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've met several times with the PE department, and that's been one thing that they, in every meeting I've had, that they feel like it sort of devalues the work that they do, that it's not factored in. And this would reinforce the value of that course. Every other, which I think is the right thing to do.
Somebody works hard to be a 4-point student, they have to work just as hard in PE as they would on the other courses.
Right.
And I might, just as long as Mr. Nimrod's here, looking all tan and relaxed.
Don't I usually?
Middle school changes, anything that you would want to highlight there?
No, I included just a summary there. I would say, you know, most of these are updates and stuff, and kind of similar to Brad said, you're just kind of adjusting some of our language so it's more closely aligned with board policy. Most of the work was on starting on page 21, just with code of conduct information, being a little bit more working with Apple a little bit and Brad on this too, just being more 7-12 with some of our language and such that we have for our middle school students. And kind of clearing up some things there. Yeah, a lot of what's on that summary is pretty just mundane, I guess, or just kind of tidying up some things that have been in our handbook here for the last several years.
One thing that I've heard anecdotally from students that are in my house and otherwise have been questions about dress code. And I noticed that it's pretty vague. I'm just wondering, are the mentions of dress code equitable for all genders of kids? I know that girls, it's pretty specific like not wearing or like showing shoulders or wearing tank tops, is that consistent with what boys or gender neutral students would wear? I'm wondering if it's consistent across for everyone.
Yes, I would say, in terms of, like, for example, we had, for instance, the term muscle shirt in there. We've had that for the last several years. And it just, like I'm saying, there's some of those modifications, those were words that we kind of just trying to not tie our hands too much, and let things we can work within what we have. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, and I'm reading the Decorah Middle School handbook where it says clothing should reflect modest necklines, hemlines, and fit. So it's not saying it's up to staff to make that discretion. It's not like measuring in inches or specifically
Correct.
labeling a style of shirt, for example.
Or another example of what we had a fingertip kind of rule exercise kind of a situation, and we just kind of felt like, based on what's available to purchase on the part of parents, we felt like that was some language that probably needed to take out, that we probably can't enforce that, or at least that.
The high school, ours is on page 62. It's word for word what board policy it says for student appearance. So basically how that's worded, a lot of it has to do with if it's school safety, can't advocate drugs, alcohol, violence of any kind. I don't think designated or lead itself to a specific thing. I think it's pretty well written in board policy. Really the lens there, and often the lens that you see does it create a significant or substantial disruption to the learning environment. And if you can't really make a compelling case that it does, then you're not in a great position to have that. That's something that you're going to exclude a student from education for. So really, we just have worded it as student appearance. And if you look at board policy 502.1, that's word for word what your policy says.
And the substantial disruption of the learning environment, that's the classic educational test case. I'm trying to think.
Tinker.
Tinker.
Would be the most.
Yeah. So. I mean, if Brown's gonna wear something to school that's gonna incite a riot, we're gonna tell him.
Good, I'm glad that's right.
I don't know where I was going. And so that's probably changed over time, right? It might be something different in the 60s as it would be in the 70s.
Yeah, I just want to advocate that, males, females, gender neutral students are all, treated fairly, and not one group is maybe targeted more than another, just that everyone's considered. But Mr. Hurst, I really appreciate your efforts to be consistent with board policies and state guidelines. So thanks for the extra time and effort it took to incorporate that this year.
Okay, I've forgotten. Do we have a motion on the floor yet?
We just have the motion, no second.
Second. Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor of approving the 23-24 student handbooks, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next one of our annual things for IASB, legislative priorities. Typically we pick 2, 3, or 4 priorities to submit to IESB as our choices. Open it to the floor and see what people are advocating.
I'll jump in and say, from my seat, and I think working with the administrators, and they're welcome to participate out there, teacher recruitment and licensure, incentives would help immensely. There's one that has come up a couple times, and that's use management fund to offer recruitment incentives to attract high quality teachers. Would be something that, if we had that opportunity and that was a way to save general fund, I would like to have that option, as we found this year. Although we've kind of got some strategies and we have some good recommendations coming from our teacher recruitment task force group that met this summer. We feel like we'll be a little bit earlier in the game, but we still would like to have the flexibility to do that. So I'd support that one wholeheartedly. And I think about the funding, of course, we could always use more funding. I'm worried about when I see the numbers on the voucher or the ESAs and how much, if they approved 17,000, and I think they had thought, well, we'll go over 13,000. So as I was trying to explain to friends at dinner the other night, this isn't a new expenditure for the state. You know, they were saying to me, well, doesn't that money just go to the public schools if they go to a private school? I said, no, the state wasn't spending that money before. This is a whole new line item that the state has. And that makes me anxious that when you're doing that, the money has to come from somewhere. And, you know, I know we've been told, well, school districts will get a portion back. Well, that doesn't kick in this year. So there's no guarantee that that would even happen. So funding and how it really ties to the ESAs would probably be ones for me. You know, what you're probably not gonna hear me be as worried about, just because, and I don't, like, we do real well with test scores, and, you know, you don't always have to worry about something that is a strength. So not that, you know, student achievement is important, but we're doing well with that. So
One that has been a recurring theme over the last many years is mental health.
absolutely. Fortunately, you know, we got one of the grants, and it seems to be a well-funded grant and for the therapeutic classroom. So we're gonna access that, but yeah, for sure, mental health in schools is only gonna, that's a huge need. So absolutely.
So priorities as well.
I think teacher retention, you know, to echo what you said, is critical. And will continue to be critical in the years ahead.
Oh, for sure.
This is just
For
the
sure.
beginning of a huge shift. And our public teachers, school teachers need all the support they can get.
And I'll tell you, I'm gonna repeat something that maybe sounds, but one of the things we did in negotiation was we had that, we used to call it the shadow base, but we now renamed it the recruitment base. And we went a little higher, you know, we went over their offer to get to $40,000. And I'll tell you what, which is, I'm going to tell you is unique to this community and is a credit to our teachers. I've had more than one veteran teacher thank me for doing that. And because they know that we need to pay our young teachers more. And that's not a statement that I would hear in other districts that I've been at, because, you know, if you're paying them more, then you could have been paying me more, kind of thing. But I think people realize that I'm going to leave the profession soon, and I'm going to be in this community, and I want to have good teachers here. And that's a very nice thing, a very good feeling to be in a district where people appreciate that.
Mhm,
And I'm glad the board went along with it. So
mhm.
good job, guys. But yeah, absolutely. It's gonna get harder and harder to find teachers and there's just not as many out there.
Yeah, I think any work that, any work that the state does to help us with financial incentives to help retention and professional development, I think. So I think that 12 should be surely one of the top three, if not the top one.
Yeah, there are others that people feel strongly about, or do we just go with the top two here? Or three?
I think we have teacher recruitment, intention, mental health, and what the comment was about funding. and
School
just-
funding policy.
Oh,
And then the
Yeah,
PD and retention.
Yeah.
are we good with those three?
I am.
So which you're gonna
That
do,
was 4.
yep. So you're gonna do number 11,
That's a good one.
14,
number 7. And 14. And not the 12.
I think 12 is important
I
too.
do too. Yeah.
12 is
That's number 3.
teacher professional development. and
no, 3 to 5.
Let's leave all 4 in there then.
Yeah.
You do those 4.
4 again.
Have the email to reply to. Reporting our,
Do you want me to do you want
Oh, I can do it.
Okay.
And then we copy those notes, though, so I get that.
to?
Okay.
into her. Those go here.
It's
Right.
Apple buyback.
Back to paper.
Yeah.
Ironic with the Apple buyback. Going back to the Apple buyback, something we routinely do. Hopefully we're getting a good price on our apples this time.
And this is just a random conglomeration of devices that we no longer, so there's some iPads in here, there's some Mac minis, there's a few laptops. And
Old iPod, like classics,
Mm.
Really?
there's a mix.
iPods, where'd you find those?
Stuff to wear.
a couple Apple IIe's with Capel Wolfenstein on floppy disk for you old.
Oregon Trail.
Oregon.
Oh,
Oregon
no.
Trail,
There's one of those in walk-on, so it's still there.
Where?
We can talk, it was in Barbara Conus's old room.
Okay.
He's still in. I played that.
I did too.
There's at least 3 of us in this room that are really excited like that. And there's a whole bunch of people that are like, there's some people who needed to get out more when they were used.
So I asked for proposals from different companies. I sent out an email with kind of an outline of what we were looking for and the full serial number list of well over 2,000 devices that we're wanting to sell back for gain some money from. A change from this time that I asked for was a 50% due on collection payment. That was something that with the AEA and some of the other agencies in the area kind of were looking at and recommending. It helps keep them pushing forward. The last buyback we had, It took them probably 4 months for them to actually submit a payment for us. And that's a long 4 months when they're shooting emails back and forth, and it gives them a little more ownership, I think, to get it done and graded quickly. So we get the best value we can, because the sooner we sell them and they give us our check, the better value we get for them. I also asked them for a list of deductions, because that's something that have kind of been under the table in the past. We didn't really know that there was deductions. They just kind of came out of the check and they weren't really ever listed anywhere. So we asked for a list of deductions. It was interesting to see back what they charge for and how much they charge for it. And then that by the end of July, they have all of the devices removed from our building so that we're not fumbling through those when school started. And they have all agreed on that, which is awesome. As far as the three options, we had Diamond Assets, Second Life Mac, and Total Technology that submitted proposals to us. The top at a value is Total Technology, and I labeled them with grade A, B, C, D, and F, and they in all of their grades were well above the other value. One thing they didn't include was a list of deductions. So I called and asked for clarification because the quote, it listed that deductions were included, but I didn't know what that meant because I didn't see a list of actual deductions. And they said that there was going to be no additional costs and deductions for like chargers, stickers, where some companies charge $5 for a sticker to be removed. Some of them, Second Life Mac, waived that deduction where they might have charged for a cord or a partial cord. So different things that actually add up in the end. We tried our best to have a 1-for-1. So every device we send in, we send a cord with it. It doesn't always happen because we lose cords and these cords. So we don't always have a 1-to-1 with that back. But we send as many as we can. That was a part of that proposal, and they knew that going into it. They also offered a minimum guaranteed value. That minimum guaranteed value is on like a grade A, with deductions that they will find along the way. In Total Technology still was the higher value of all of those. So I guess my recommendation is to Total Technology. It is a different vendor. It's one that we've never used. They're more of a nationwide, they're kind of a subsidy of another company out of California. That's my recommendation.
Have we used the Diamond Assets last 2 or 3 times, right? 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, I think we've only used Diamond Assets here.
Is Total Technology a new company?
It is not, and I actually came upon them by a marketing email, back and forth. I also, when I sent out this list of emails, a bunch that the AEA are partnering with, and I never heard back from them, which was kind of interesting. But a lot of companies are looking for people who are just giving technology away, because then they take and they retain all that value, and we, just give it away for free to them, and then they take and they pull the gold out of them and pull whatever.
Well, kudos to you for finding this third one and reaching out to them and squeezing them a little bit to get the information out of them. So I think an opportunity to increase our assets and returns considerably.
Yeah, I agree.
Might even find an office for you sometime.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to approve the bid for Total Technology as recommended.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, is there further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Sean, for doing the bird dogging there. Okay, next, we have a recommendation to add a position of actual musical accompanist.
And add a position we're adding a position. because we're formalizing a position that's existed for the last 16 years. And I kind of shared the history that in 2006, I guess 17 years, we needed, prior to that, I guess the music teacher would have played and taught at the same time. And because someone was left quickly, we had to find a replacement, and we hired Mary Beth Bushka, who's been doing it for 16 years at $20 an hour. Thank you, Mary Beth. Among other things, what makes it maybe, I mean, obviously you have to be highly skilled in the piano. And then the hours aren't consistent. They're not next to each other, they're not contiguous, but you come in twice a day.
Yeah, and it depends on, which classes we offer and how they help with the classes. They help a little bit with some vocal practices, certainly the performances. It's a really unique set of hours and availability that's going to be hard. And to Tim's point, it's not a position that you can just walk in and kind of be trained up. You've really got to have years of piano training to be able to do that position and do it well and perform and do performances playing the piano and accompanying the choirs. So it is kind of a tough, kind of to your point, or like a tough to fill like skill set position that you need to have a specific person for.
We anticipate it being tough to fill. Yes, we've not posted it before.
True.
So this is doing two things. This is maybe formalizing an arrangement that we've had in the past. And then in looking at the compensation with, so this is a line item. We've been spending this for the last 17 years. We're used to spending this money. We looked it up, and we had compensated for, I think, 380 hours over the last 2 years with just putting it on a timesheet. So we would put this as like a stipend, and well, we would still run it through a timesheet, excuse me. We'd run it through a timesheet, it wouldn't be a stipend, but we're recommending that we raise the rate of pay from $20 to $30 an hour. We checked with Jason Roush and felt like that was consistent with what other accompanyists get compensated. And so we're hoping that, in this community, we've got as good a shot as any, that there'd be somebody with the skill set and the time and maybe the desire to be part of the music program, that we could get it filled. But we thought we ought to make it an official position first.
After talking to you last week, I just wondered, because it's so unique, might this be two people filling it? Different choirs, different. You don't know yet.
I hate to say two different people could do it, because we're kind of outside of my scope of expertise.
But I just, because of the odd hours, if someone had an afternoon gig, they could do the morning and.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we're already unique in the fact that our music director is not also the accompanist, which is common in other school districts.
Yes,
So we've
very
already been maintaining this added position. That was not a formal position for a long time.
I reached out to Sarah Buska, who was no relation to her, but she was a vocal choir teacher in Mason City, just to ask, because she was on the Vocal Music Association president for a few years. And she said that she wasn't aware of any other schools our size and of our stature of music program that would not have a high school music accompanist. And it'd be exceedingly rare to find that anywhere. So to kind of have and maintain the quality of choir that I think we've grown to expect. And, you can think about the ability to direct the choir and not have to play the piano at the same time. I mean, yes, Jason can play the piano, but it'd be exceedingly difficult to direct the choir and play the piano at the same time, which is why the accompanist position is so vital to the success of the program and just the overall quality.
And the quality of the program is exceptional.
Yes.
It is a packed house
Oh,
at
sure.
every concert, with lots of attendees enjoying that music that do not have any blood relation to the singers in the choir. So it's really, a benefit to our community in addition to our students.
I make a recommendation, we add the position for the high school musical accompanist.
I'll second that.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Additional Schedule B positions to be added or reclassified.
Yeah, so we usually do these through negotiations and we just kind of had it. And it kind of, the list kept growing as we were kind of looking and it got bigger and bigger on things that we wanted to add. And again, this ties back to participation for a lot of them. Some of them, the CSTO, we currently have, so I'll back up. We currently have FFA, which is a paid position that goes to the ag teacher, and it's actually required that it goes. The FFA advisor has to be the ag teacher. Learned that last year. And so they get an extra stipend to go to events. It's like being the coach of the ag program. CSTO strands would all kick in next year, but we started out the conversation like, let's look at adding these this year. So we've got them in place. We start to build those. And then Brad and I talked about greenhouse manager, and then we just kind of started, middle school skits and wrestling, and then it grew from there. Which is great that we have this much participation, not just in our music program, but in our middle school wrestling, music listening, and all sorts of stuff. And looking at how big it got, Ron and I just kind of had a conversation. I think it was Friday when I was hauling some stuff.
Driving, yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about maybe separating it into two different groups, running the CSTOs and the greenhouse manager just on timesheets for another year, which would do two things. It kind of make sure folks get compensated for their time, but also kind of maybe provide a time audit so that at the end of the year, we can kind of know how long that they're going to, how many hours is it going to be commensurate with an FFA? And FFA, they just have a lot of stuff, and we're not sure how much is going to be in place for all these other ones. But so the current recommendation as it sits, it just kind of divides it into, hey, let's leave the CSTOs and greenhouse manager on a timesheet. They get compensated for their time. Tim Hayes, again, doing a fantastic job with our greenhouse. And then for the other ones where we're looking at increased numbers for wrestling and robotics, and then the music listening course, we just add those and would add those and put those on the schedule. There's some reclassification. I guess the other one that was kind of unique, well, a couple others that were unique, the high school tag. In the past, that was handled a lot with a prep period during the day, which we had to take away this year due to scheduling. And then middle school strength and conditioning, and I think I had sent some stuff out about that. We had placed that at level E this year, but we always want to reclassify just because it is a year-round position. And when we put it at E, it was like, well, we're comparing middle school to other middle school coaching, and they tend to just be smaller. If you think about middle school basketball, varsity basketball versus a middle school 8th grade coach, the time commitment is much more at the high school. But we felt like the middle school strength and conditioning time commitment was more than level E. It's not exact science, maybe not quite to high school strength and conditioning, so we put it at level B. And all these have been looked at, but some of them a little bit more carefully. So middle school strength and conditioning reclassification example was a collaboration between Mr. Nimrod and Mr. Riley and myself. Because among other things, when you do some of these shifting around, you just have to do a little comparison, like, okay, if we shift this to a different level, what's it going to do to other folks that we have at a level? So maybe I'll stop talking and just open it up to questions that folks have.
Maybe one thing, CSDO, for the benefit of those viewing at home, can you explain what the
Career Technical Service Organization.
I think I typed it in, I typed it in wrong. CTS,
yeah, okay.
which is what it does on the first one, and for some reason I put CDSTO on here, so I apologize for that mistake.
So CSD, Career Technical Education, are going to be, every school's got to have 4 strands, and they're going to be your well, I'm going to say this wrong, family consumer science or health, nutrition, human services, applied sciences, manufacturing, business and finance, and agriculture and food. Those are the 4 we have.
Those are the 4.
And so in my mind, it's shop class and home economics and computers, I guess what would the other one be? What am I missing?
Natural, I think,
FFA, yeah. Anyway, those are a little bit more advanced than when I
Yeah.
matriculated through school.
It's exciting that we've had so many participants, like in the middle school level, with both boys and girls wrestling. I think the strength and conditioning program is really strong and will only support our high school coaches.
And
I
I
just
guess,
see a lot of benefit to fairly compensating our school staff that are working so hard to grow our programs. I just want to make sure that we can financially afford it.
yeah,
And
and so two things there, the middle school strength and conditioning, that was kind of a request from high school.
collaboration in relation to how it's grown, in reasons given over the last few school years, we've had an active group that started to kind of take hold a little bit more officially this year with some morning opportunities and that participation from the board has been excellent.
so in addition to the summer programs, the before school sessions, and that was throughout the whole school year, wasn't it?
It's been good. We have some space challenges that we'll have to continue to administratively kind of address and work through. Like, I'll just come back and see you guys again with that.
And there is I mean, cost wise, I think 15,000, I think I looked at the numbers, it was $15,000. I think there'll be another about 8,000 or more for those CSDO timesheets that we do. And again, you're investing in your people that are turning around working with children. And so, yes, it's a cost. I'm not gonna pretend it's not a cost, but if you think about our program and retention, there's a lot baked into this. We're creating a better experience for our students, or a rich experience for our students. We've got adults in our school district that want to do these things. So that's super cool. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to engage in Decorah, and they're not just athletics or necessarily music oriented all the time, and that's good.
A lot of things we keep costing us, additional monies, the funds as retention and all these things. So we probably hear when you're asking for money at different times like this for these positions, which makes sense. We probably, hopefully there's other situations that aren't as robust that we also review, and we probably don't hear about the times where we're saving some money, where we're cut back on a program. In terms of all of these programs obviously are reviewed by somebody, and if we don't need people because we have less participation, I'm sure there's places where we cut back as well.
Sure, positions can go unfilled. I can tell you the cheapest way to run a school district is to have, programs that aren't successful, because then nobody goes out. And I mean, I'm not trying to even be funny there. We got a great band program going with the right hire at one of my districts, and it cost a lot of money when you started getting lots of kids out, and you had to get better uniforms, and you had to fix instruments. But it was also a sense of pride too, and so, yeah, if we don't have the numbers, we're not going to fill positions for sure. But at the same time, there's a cost of doing business. So,
Yeah, and we talked specifically about wrestling and strength and conditioning, but there's also high school robotics, high school music listening, additional high school speech coach. So it's really addressing all learners.
Two different sports, bowling and wrestling, something that a lot of schools might not have, but we have tons of participation.
oh my gosh, yeah.
Kids are doing things that we would not have expected. They might not be involved in other athletics. So it's
They probably wouldn't be out for anything.
correct. They could be, yeah, absolutely. Some of those people.
So no, it's been wonderful.
And this fits into our financial plan for the year
I'll work on it.
through the general budget.
Yeah.
I so move to approve the MOU Schedule B positions to add and reclassify for the 23-24 school year.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next, discussion and possible approval of transportation building office space. It looks a little different out there than it did.
Yeah, so. Gonna show the new space off to a few folks today. So there's an office space out there.
And at the bus garage
At the
location.
bus garage location, there's a transportation office, but there's another office space. And so, and I can go start my reasons, but I'm gonna get to a point where I recommend that we move this central office over to that space. It starts with, I think the big reason is just the space availability. Because if you kind of count this office, Darlene shares a space with Christy and Sean is in a hallway.
And Sean has never complained.
Well, not
Publicly.
yes. I see on Facebook, but that's a whole other story. No, I'm teasing. So there's adequate space. There's at least 8 offices with windows out there that would allow us to, everyone have an office. Darlene, among other things, HR, so she would have a private space for conversations. There'd be, we think that without measuring it, there'd be a board space out there that wouldn't have pillars and would be more conducive for those presentations. We had a tour and we had actually held an administrative meeting out there, I think in April. So the principals and we went out there to just kind of see the space and have a meeting, and then we just kind of walked around, and it's huge. And I think that was a lot of the questions was, what do we use this space for, and could we use this for central office? And I mean, I like the space. I think we will use it. We would be able to host small group meetings out there that, would have a space offsite for staff if they want to have collaborations and PD. This space would be, there's not a lot of programs I can put out there with regards to, it doesn't have a playground. And so if we were going to put like a preschool out there, it just wouldn't work because there's not a playground out there. Us moving out there, we'd be able to put homeschool here. Homeschool is currently on the west side. That would be an opportunity for homeschool to maybe have a little bit more permanent space and be a little closer to some of the other schools. We've talked internally in this office, if we would do this, there's a couple of windows of the year that are less time busy than other times. So the preferred time slot would be after the car report, September 15th. So like a move sometime the week of September 16th. They've got a generator out there. So the one thing that having the IT and servers out there is there's a backup generator, but also I wasn't tracking that it's on a different power grid. So there's an opportunity to, if one part of the district goes down, you could still operate the other part of the district. Obviously, we're thinking short term. Security wise, probably as secure as this building. I mean, if you think right now, we're in here having a meeting and there's nothing that's preventing anybody from coming in. I mean, we'd probably hear the door, but the HR and the stuff is accessible right now. So having everybody with a door that closes and locks would make that more secure. We'd be closer to the transportation staff, which we've never been. I know there's a question I got asked by board member, noise wise. There's a lot of space between the bay and where the office is, so that shouldn't bother us. If you're gonna ask me what the reasons we wouldn't do it, the big one is the location, and you can't, like, I can't make the location any different. It seems like it's a long ways away. Probably because you take things for granted in Decorah how close everything is. And I know when I even before I put it in Google, I thought, oh, it's 10 minutes farther. Well, Google said it was about 3 or 4 minutes, and then you drive it, and from here to the high school, I feel like I can make that in 3 minutes. And from depending on how I hit the lights, from the transportation building to the high school is 7, so it is 4 minutes longer. That's pretty consistent. But at the end of the day, 4 minutes, it seems like a lot in this community, but it's really not, in my opinion. We wouldn't be, with location, it'd be farther, and we wouldn't get a flow of people that maybe are at the middle school that stop in, which I also can't change that, but if people need to come in and see me or see the central office, they would have to drive out there. So that's probably my summary.
I was out there today. I was really impressed. It was my first time being in that space. I was really excited about the opportunity for the central admin staff and people who use the central admin hub as office space to have the space they need to do their job well. I thought it also had extra space. I don't know where you squirrel away all of your paper documents right now, but I imagine there might be more space at that location. There's a few offices that do not have windows that could be used for secure storage as needed. I'm really excited about the fact that our district is moving to a name badge key system, and there was security. It is at the bus, the Volt, what used to be the Volt property has the big, the bay areas where our buses will be parked and where our school bus driver team will be working on buses. There is a clear separation from that in the office. So there's, you're in close proximity, but it is separate. And it's just, there's a lot of parking. I think there's space for teams of teachers to meet or groups of teachers to meet. The only disadvantage that I can think of is that additional 4-minute drive. And I think that it just makes me smile and happy to live in such a small town where that is seen as a disadvantage. We're really at a luxury here and are living the small town life. So I'm excited about the idea, and like I said, I can't think of any major disadvantages that would make me not recommend this.
And one of the things we talked a little bit about in our walk around was just shipping, receiving.
Right.
And so I had a chance to call Greg. I know he is intrigued by the possibility of shipping, having a loading dock so that they could unload, and having a place that they could put stuff and sort it. One of the things in the summer, they might have to move stuff multiple times, because currently we do receiving over at Carrie Lee. So that would be an opportunity to pursue in the future. That would just be, especially if we had staff up there, that could also do the receiving. So an added side bonus benefit.
We still have radios, right? We communicate.
Yeah. And they would reach out there with no problem.
They do, yeah. So we have instant communication in 2023. Okay, so 4 minutes is nothing.
Yeah, I don't really care where the board meets, whether we meet here, meet out there, if that space can be adequate to do it. There's enough space when we have issues, we have more people, and we've also moved to different locations. My biggest concern would be administration. I do stop in here. You and all the past superintendents have really had busy lives, a lot of people in their offices when many times during the day. So that would be any concern in it. When this was first initially talked about, I thought, geez, boy, you're really accessible, and I think it's important to be accessible and have your superintendent accessible and staff members. So if you guys as building administrators don't think it's a concern to you to be able to travel out there. And I don't know how many times you stop in to see Tim, or other people, but that's the one that I think, that's the only item that I can really think of. Oh, we could even rent it out to somebody else and create income as well. You know, or we could do that here. This didn't make complete sense for the homeschooled folks, but I hope that, you know, Tim and I talked about this before, and you go to every building every week.
Well, I can be, I don't go to every week. So, I mean, I could be right here and then I can, if my schedule, like, I don't always get to buildings. And so then, you know, midway through the year, I just started scheduling myself in on Wednesdays so that I was like, okay, rotate. So being able to say, okay, I'll be at the high school on this Wednesday, and then next week I'll be at Perry Lee or whatever. That helped me because it was on my calendar. So regardless of where I'm at, that just, I need to make sure I make that as a considered effort, because there's so much that you can get caught up in, that, you know, I don't go to the buildings, you know, my previous jobs, I was stationed right in the classrooms, you know, next to the third grade room or next to the music room. So sure, you're always in the building, but depending on, you know, being scheduled out. So making sure the superintendent is visible is certainly important, and tried to work on that, you know, in a way, wherever my office is. So.
I also appreciate you connecting with all building principals on
Yeah,
this topic.
yeah.
And asking for feedback. I think that's valuable.
I guess.
Do we need I mean, it's listed as a discussion item.
Possible approval.
Do you have anything you wanted to?
Well, just with communication, what I said earlier, it's so instant. If there's a crisis,
Yeah.
they can get you if they need to, or anybody. So, yeah.
Another A+ that I really see too is for the free and reduced lunch conversations that have to be had, I'm sure, multiple times a week, and human resource things with the office in the back, not even having partitions. I think that's a really large plus, having rooms that are, like, sit and shut the door and have this conversation of privacy, and all those conversations should be privacy anyway. So I do see that as a positive.
And homeschool assistants, you think you conversed with them, they're going to be happy to be here
I believe so, yeah.
because of the location.
Because the location and they work with Dana, who's mostly at Perry Lee. So that makes sense too. So
I think just as important, if that position or that building makes sense to move this there. You know, it has been, I know, thought out very, very well, but this is a very valuable piece of property too, to make sure that it's being used. You know, for homeschool, right way to satisfy their needs. But this is a pretty nice location and a nice building. And if high school, if that particular program comes in here, the homeschool, and if it's more valuable for something else, you just have to make that revision, make a decision.
Well, the homeschool wouldn't have to be the exclusive use here either. Or not, 8 hours a day, 5 hours a week program. So
Did you guys brainstorm as administrators about use for this position?
we talked a little bit about it. And I think homeschool probably, I mean, what limits it is you're not gonna have, like, you're not gonna put a grade level here or a couple classrooms, because you couldn't, space wise and bathroom wise and fire code wise, you'd have to really upgrade the building. So,
What about there's groups of teachers that meet and need workspace. For example, I was invited to attend a TLC team meeting and they all come in with their bags and I'm not sure that, I think they're all working on the go and don't have a spot, like even to have space to meet. That's not a shared, shared use classroom, to have space to meet or places to put things, to have a home base for a program like that might be beneficial as well.
We certainly could utilize this for different meeting spaces, especially, if Carrie Lee in the middle school being across the street could use this. Homeschool, as Ron said, isn't gonna be in here 5 days a week, from 8 to 4. So there'd be opportunities to look at this space and, try to come up with where would homeschool be, like, could there be some designated meeting areas? Sure.
Okay, I think we may have beat this horse to death. Does anyone want to offer a motion?
I so move to approve the central admin office being moved to the new transportation building office space. At a date that the central admin office chooses.
Second that with reservation.
Reservation for office space out there?
We've just had the conversation, but I think it's difficult for me to move the superintendent. And it's hard for me to say that because I'm not the superintendent. So if Tim thinks it makes sense to go out there. It just concerns me a little bit that there's some distance and the leader is not quite as close to his the people he leads. So that's where I have a little bit of concern. I did second it.
Do you want that in minutes with observation or just a second?
No,
Just,
I'll take it back.
okay.
For comment on it.
It'll be on YouTube.
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion and a second and some discussion. Is there any further discussion?
I have the same reservations, but again, like you said, I'm not the superintendent, so.
Good. Well, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item, furniture purchased.
So furniture, we had, kind of had middle school furniture without a dollar amount for at least 1 year on our couple save budget. We got a dollar amount. It was large and, we kind of got some feedback, like, what are we doing for the other buildings? We didn't want to just do furniture for one building. What does it look like? What do we have as a replacement plan? So I can tell you, and we did a little tour. I thought Cindy did a nice summary of the furniture at the middle school isn't the oldest, but it probably is the least functional type furniture that we have. Some of those all-in-one desks, just stuff that isn't super conducive. Where you go to John Klein or Carrie Lee, and most of the rooms have tables and chairs, and you might have 4 blue tables and 1 brown table, but they function well because you can move around. So the recommendation we've already had previously allocated to get tables for the second grade classrooms for John Klein. And that bill was a little over $8,000. I didn't memorize it, Kathy, but it's a little over $8,000. We had about $75,000 in our budget for this item after the 8,000. So the Justin felt he could get half the building started at the middle school. When I add those two numbers together, it's about $61,000, $62,000. And what we'd like, the proposal is to do half of the middle school, so that's 230 desks, 310 chairs for the middle school, and then have an allotment of $13,000 for Carrie Lee, but not buy anything without getting teacher input. So we focus that on chairs, and we are going to recommend either the Han chairs or the academia chairs, and kind of let the Carrie Lee staff work with the administration on that. Because one of the things you don't want to do is surprise people. And as my brother who taught high school English walked in one year and said, I got all new furniture. And he didn't know it was coming. He wasn't asked for input. He didn't ask if he wanted it or his teaching style. And I think he liked it, but I think there's that part, and Ben was nodding because he was like, yeah, you don't want to do that. Might be exactly what you wanted, but you do want to have a little bit of input on that process. So the recommendation is for the chairs and desks for the middle school, and then kind of set up an allotment for Carrie Lee, which they can, spend that right away if they're ready to, or take some time, and that would be ready for them.
So in addition to a functional standpoint, when we had our walkthrough, we walked through the middle school, Carrie Lee and John Klein. And Greg was with us.
Yeah.
Which was really helpful to get his perspective as well, because he, brought it to our attention that the chairs in Carrie Lee Elementary are aging and tearing up the floor of the building. You can see that every chair in the building has a tennis ball attached to every leg, and the age of the chair. And he just mentioned that the chairs are tearing up the floor. The plastic is old and cracking, and rivets are falling out. So it was, and it also surprised me that the teachers, I was surprised, so many classrooms have tables and chairs. I mean, especially in Carrie Lee and John Klein. And it sounds like the teachers are happy with the functionality that they have with those tables and chairs, and much prefer those rather than the desk where you flip up the lid and it has the storage and the chair attached to it. Especially at the middle school level, when you have kids of all shapes and sizes, that might not fit into that one standard size wall. So it was really, thanks for the invitation to go into the buildings, and it was really helpful to get a fresh perspective that didn't have before. It was helpful.
I'll make a motion that we approve the furniture purchasing item N.
So what are we approving? What dollar amount? I didn't, I see your spreadsheet.
Yeah, so
61 13.
yeah. I'm just gonna add them up.
74.
$75,158.
The 8 is already approved, right?
Yeah, the 8,000's already been allocated and approved.
Two things, I guess. One, when we talk about what we just approved and saying we need the right people in the right position, and having enough people to do all the things we want to do, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Having the right people in the right places probably makes more sense than having the chairs and tables, that are perfect. One thing we also need to really keep in mind is we're going to probably spend $500,000 or a lot of money on a roof here real soon, once we figure out what's going on there. So, we do need to stay within our budget and make sure that we have a roof, and having a building that's not leaking is a lot more important than right now than having the correct amount of chairs or the correct tables and chairs, period. So, are we stretching our budget to, when it comes to putting a new roof on? And when we do that, and this and other things we're doing, and I don't want to keep on going. Do we have enough money to buy something? But we do need to make sure that when it comes to talking about the roof, I want to have a conversation. We have to go out and borrow money to put a roof on.
We've been looking at what our balances are and trying to figure out when to put a bond issue out, because right now we've got the funds there. But you still want to have some in reserve if you're going to go out for a bond issue and build a building. So right now we've got a cushion there. It's just how fast or how soon are we going to look at the building project? So we do have the funds. We would just maybe have to put more towards a new elementary building, go for more bonds.
Also, I think one of the things that I heard in talking about, because the middle school roof has been a top priority or
Well-
a topic of conversation. You're aware that the roof needs to be replaced and that there's problems with water leaking. But I think there's also timing to consider with when we could reasonably contract someone to make repairs or to replace the roof, that would be in a different.
Yeah,
Timeline.
the recommendation is that we have it ready to go, October or November for an RFP. It's gonna exceed probably what we're allowed to, and there's two factors. We're gonna have to hire an engineer and architect to do it. And among other things, the scope of the project, but also because it's a unique roof that we don't want to do that wrong. And so, so that looks like if we get all that in place in October, November, then we could, go through the process, and we're looking at the earliest, summer of 24 type of project.
Right.
And to Brian's point on do we have the funds to do it? Well, we have spent a lot of PEPAL save this year for sure. But I think we've made some good purchases. We can look at one thing that we may not need to purchase as much of in the future is our buses. Because we're in a nice place with our vehicles. There's the option, because I agree with you, the roof is going to be a serious need. We really need to do that. Depending on the cost of the roof, and where we're at with our other things, if we want to have some reserve. We talked to John Burmeister, our financial, something I hadn't heard of before is the board can pass a resolution, I'm gonna get the wording wrong, where we'll spend the money we have on hand now with the option of going back and levying against like a anticipated revenue bond if we need to free up cash. And right now we're gonna have about, is it 2 million in PEPAL and about 7 million in SAVE is the ability we have to borrow against those, or 7,500, the anticipated revenue. Okay. Might bet you that Mountain Dew that it's pretty close to that. So the district can go out and as needed, as emergencies arise, generate money. Not that we want to, but we want to make sure we have, we talked about the idea that you could spend down the cash you have on hand and still have an opportunity to not be in a situation where you ran out of your PEPAL save. So.
Right now, it's gonna look at it, our save balance is a little over 3 million, and our PEPAL is over 1 million. And right now, we've got just the baseball project that we're working on. And then our payments for right now. And the other projects that are on the list.
The money for the turf across the way here is coming out
That's
of
coming out
our
after.
ESSER funds.
Mhm.
With the lemon.
So remind me where we are. We have a motion.
We have a motion, we do not have a second.
I will second the motion of an approval of furniture purchase.
Okay, is there further discussion?
The question, what happens to the furniture that doesn't keep the good stuff in?
Keep the good stuff, put it up,
Which
yeah, put it up for silent auction, on the website or dispose of.
amounts to a few dollars.
Yeah, we just had what did we profit, was it $700 out of the bus barn?
Mhm.
So that's, okay, so it's,
Or stuff that we were gonna, I didn't keep it out of the landfill, was probably the other nice thing.
well, that is good.
How would we advertise these chairs and tables that we'd be getting rid of? I mean, I heard through you, I think that we had an auction, silent auction, the bus
Yeah.
barn thing, but other than that, I didn't see it or.
Yeah, so it's currently set up that we put an ad in the paper two weeks in a row. And then we can put stuff on our website.
We can also email different districts too, to let them know we have these chairs. You know, and there's probably other districts that might need something too, even parochial schools. So you could reach out like to Kelmer, Southwind, Turkey Valley, if those parochial schools need to bid on.
St. Ben's,
St. Ben's, right?
I think Decorah News may be a good place to put on, a lot of people read Decorah News that don't read the newspaper.
And to your point, we could be, and it may not generate more revenue, but reach a larger audience. I know Cedar Rapids, because I worked there, and then Central City, we both used Gov Deals when I was there. So we just put stuff on Gov Deals. I had to rewrite our policy on how we just dispose of stuff. And I'm not saying it reached a broader audience. I'm not saying it like made a whole bunch of money difference. But like when we tore out the lockers, we had a guy from Mason City drive truck in a trailer and picked them all up. I have no idea how he got home because I feel like the wheels were this big. But as long as he got out of the parking lot, we were fine. So, but yeah, all those chairs and desks are taxpayer resources, and it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we do our due diligence to dispose of them, without just giving them away. So,
And your bigger point, keeping them out of the landfill.
yeah.
If somebody can use them for a little longer, repurpose them, whatever. Good thing.
Yeah, we were pretty excited with our auction. There's some stuff that didn't sell, and they talked the guy from Waukon who came over to take in some of the extra stuff.
I didn't even know what most of it was.
Yeah, I was shocked that it went in a good way. So,
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second. We've had discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, superintendent's report.
a lot of the stuff we've talked about, got a follow-up, ISAB follow-up to our board self-evaluation. Kind of recommendations are, continuing getting on the same page with the board and the superintendent as, and setting goals, for the district so that everything can be aligned. And, a recommendation with that was just making sure to carve out the time to do that. So I know we're working on that process, and we'll continue to work on that process. But we got a lot of compliments on being on the same page as a board, and how well the board works together and communicates. So little note about drainage at the bus barn. We've got some ponding on the Rockwell side, in what I call the front. So is that west? Must be west.
Rockwell's west.
West.
Northwest.
Northwest? I would have got to north too. So there's a ponding issue, and we just need to figure out if we're gonna push the rock. We can't obviously make it so the water goes into Rockwell, so we just have to be careful how to do that. And that may, it covers up some of the area where we plug the buses in. New learning for me, I'm used to just plugging in buses when it's really cold, but Jim informed me that we plug in buses starting in November and get them used to being plugged in. So there is a possibility that we could have rain and buses plugged in like when it's like 40 degrees. So I hadn't known that beforehand. I was just used to plugging in buses when it got to be like 0 or 10 below. Which then you probably wouldn't have. because you don't usually have those two things. And I linked, I think I already shared this, the RSAI stuff on the vouchers and just how that exceeded the projections and, I'm just real curious when it's not something this board can, solve, but where, when we talk about funding, where the state's gonna find funding for the 17,000 that have already been approved. So,
I think you pointed out that the approval doesn't mean that all 17,000 are gonna leave the public school.
doesn't mean that they're gonna leave their public school, and that there's just some parts that when you get into it are kind of scratch, like, so are more people applying so that they have the option?
Right, that's.
And then they don't like the option, so then they're not gonna access the program. I had a friend in a other district reached out to me that had been contacted by a friend who said, my buddy wants to put his second grader into kindergarten so that they can get part of the program. And I was like, are you, like, you don't put a kindergartner or a second grader back into kindergarten, but the viewpoint was, well, that's the only way I can guarantee the funding is, and I'm like, but you don't put a second grader in, like, what's in the best interest for the child? So I think there's some stuff like that and the availability of spots in schools, but maybe people are just applying to have that as an option. I know that there's a couple of, at least one down by Cedar Rapids, a dance school that's starting a kindergarten next year. And so maybe they're gonna be a fine arts academy because the kindergartners are the ones that are all eligible next year. So you're kind of like starting a school one grade at a time and you build up. But there are just a lot of interesting stories anecdotally that are happening right now. I don't know how that will turn out. So one of the things I know, some of the private schools are limited by the amount of space they have too. So how does that work?
They can buy our chairs.
Good. Maybe drive up the price of our chairs.
Well, I found it interesting too. They could opt out, not be in our count, and then we have to take them back in November when the private school doesn't work out or whatever. And that's, hopefully that's a small percentage or insignificant.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Kathy, we're asking lots of questions about, do we have money? So.
Right, if you take a look at the cash balances, we have 6 accounts that are up, 2 accounts down, and 1 stayed the same. The management fund, we did up our tax asking last year, so that is why that one went up quite a bit. But then again, we're paying our insurance bill in July, so that's gonna go quickly, and I won't have to borrow from another fund, so I'm glad about that. Again, the Pepple one went down, and we know why the Pepple one went down. So otherwise, right now, I'm in the middle of trying to get ready for the CAR. Special ed bills were due today, so they're all out. I think we're at $407,000 that are due to us from other school districts. And just trying to keep going on that process.
The superintendent's report and financial report are not linked in the agenda, so if that could be added after the meeting,
We'll do
I
that.
would appreciate it.
Good catch.
So any questions?
Okay. Hearing none, we will get ready to